According to Watts, we exist in a state of continuous, pervasive frustration because we are relentlessly seeking a level of certainty that the very fabric of reality itself simply cannot, by its inherent nature, provide. Nature, and it's ceaseless. Dance is defined by change, by an endless flow, by radical impermanence. Everything in the cosmos is in a state of constant dynamic transformation, including, most profoundly, you. Yet, instead of accepting this fundamental truth, we cling fiercely to illusory structures, to rigid plans, ambitious goals, meticulous controls, as if these meticulously constructed defenses could somehow prevent the inevitable unfolding of life's unpredictable currents. And it is this very resistance to what is that relentlessly generates the visceral tension we have come to label as anxiety. For Watts, anxiety is not a fundamental mistake or a glitch of the mind. It is profoundly a natural reaction to the inherent absurdity of trying to live as if life were entirely predictable, entirely controllable. We harbor a deep-seated, often unconscious, fear of emptiness, of silence, of the ultimate finality of death. And so we ceaselessly invent elaborate ways to fill these perceived voids through demanding careers, intricate relationships, dogmatic religions, and endless numbing distractions. But none of these meticulously constructed psychological edifices can ever truly provide us with the elusive security we so desperately seek. Why? Because none of them are static. Everything slips away. Everything changes. Everything ultimately ceases to exist in its current form. And the more fervently we try to keep everything perpetually under control, the more profoundly anxious we inevitably become. Watts writes with piercing clarity, "The search for security is a contradictory desire. When you seek to feel secure, you are precisely assuming that you are not, and that in itself is insecurity." This is the pivotal insight. Anxiety does not originate from the external reality itself, but from our own futile, relentless attempt to deny that reality, to impose an illusion of control where none truly exists. We desperately yearn to control the crashing waves of life instead of courageously learning the art of surfing them. We strive to guarantee a perfectly stable future in a universe that is in a state of eternal mutation and ceaseless transformation. And in this tireless, often exhausting process, we tragically cease to genuinely live. Indeed, according to Watts, the more fervently you try to meticulously plan and control every aspect of your life, the more profoundly you lose intimate touch with real life, which exists solely and exclusively in the present moment, the unfolding now. And here is Watts's ultimate, unsparing blow. There can be no possible liberation as long as you stubbornly insist on resisting the present moment, on denying the reality of the now. It is only when you profoundly and unequivocally accept the inherent instability, the radical impermanence of existence, that the mind can finally begin to relax, to surrender its relentless grip. Anxiety in this transformative context dissolves not through brute force or constant struggle, but through profound understanding. Not through desperate escape, but through courageous, open-hearted surrender to what is. But then, an essential question naturally arises. If the fundamental root of anxiety lies primarily in our mind's stubborn refusal to fully inhabit the present moment, what happens when we shift our gaze from the mind and look deeply at the body? What if this constant, unsettling state of heightened alertness is far more than a mere mental pattern? What if it is, in fact, something profoundly ingrained in our very biology, a physiological echo of an ancient survival mechanism? This is precisely what we will courageously explore in the next part of our discussion, while Alan Watts powerfully reveals the existential abyss of a mind that stubbornly refuses to truly live in the present. Dr. Robert Sapolsky transports us to an equally disturbing yet profoundly insightful dimension. The very body, the flesh, the intricate nervous system that you carry within you. And what he rigorously demonstrates is as impactful as it is revealing. Anxiety is not solely a psychological phenomenon. It is, above all, a direct, undeniable reflection of our deep biological heritage. In his seminal work, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, Sapolsky opens with a brilliant, deceptively simple provocation. Why do wild animals, like zebras, not develop chronic stress-related illnesses, while seemingly advanced humans do? The answer, he argues, is chillingly simple. Animals primarily activate their sophisticated stress system only when confronted with real and immediate danger. Imagine a lion suddenly appearing, poised to strike. The zebra's entire body instantly shifts into total emergency mode. Adrenaline surges, cortisol floods the system. The heart pounds furiously, muscles tense, primed for immediate flight. But crucially, as soon as the immediate danger passes, as soon as the lion retreats or the zebra escapes, the system shuts down. The body swiftly returns to a state of calm balance. Now, starkly compare this to your own experience. You are currently running from any physical predator, yet your body acts as if you are in constant peril. You might be lying in bed, mindlessly scrolling through your phone, consumed by thoughts of a difficult meeting tomorrow, the slow dissolution of a relationship, the crushing possibility of professional failure, the inevitable loss of loved ones, or even your own perceived irrelevance in the grand scheme of things. And your body, tragically, reacts to these abstract thoughts as if they were immediate, life-threatening dangers. Your heart pounds, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. You break out in a cold sweat, your muscles remain perpetually tensed, and your sleep becomes an elusive dream. And the most devastating part? This cycle repeats itself day after grueling. Day for weeks, months, sometimes even years. Your ancient brain is trapped in a state of constant, exhausting alert, never receiving the crucial physiological signal that the danger has finally passed. Sapolsky meticulously shows us that the human stress response system, though incredibly sophisticated, was fundamentally designed to effectively resolve immediate physical problems. But we, in our modern complexity, have inadvertently hijacked it. We now routinely employ this powerful primal system to grapple with abstractions, with daunting social expectations, with nagging emotional insecurities, with unresolved traumas that echo from our past, and with profound existential dilemmas that defy simple solutions. The devastating result: our highly evolved bodies short-circuit, and this internal collapse expresses itself in a myriad of visceral, often debilitating forms: chronic digestive issues, insidious hair loss, hormonal dysregulation, a compromised immune response, cardiovascular diseases, sexual dysfunctions, and pervasive depression. And there's an even more tragic layer to this modern predicament: the unparalleled power of anticipation. While most animals experience only in the direct face of a real, tangible threat, we humans are uniquely capable of suffering profoundly from threats that don't even exist in the present moment. Sapolsky eloquently explains that the mere anticipation of a problem, the thought of a potential disaster, is more than enough to trigger the full physiological cascade of a stress response. In other words, you might be perfectly healthy, physically safe, and comfortably at home. But if your mind begins to vividly imagine a future catastrophe, your body will react with the same intensity as if you were already living through that catastrophe. And so we find ourselves living perpetually stressed by internal ghosts, relentlessly attacked by our own thoughts, dominated by a biology that simply wasn't designed for the relentless pace and abstract pressures of the modern world. We are, in essence, descendants of ancient hunter-gatherers, attempting to navigate a reality filled with glowing screens, crushing deadlines, and abstract existential pressures. Yet, our primordial brain still comprehends only two fundamental commands: survive or die. Sapolsky forces us to confront this uncomfortable truth. The core problem isn't anxiety itself, but the undeniable fact that it is being activated relentlessly every single day for reasons that are not physically real. And as long as we fail to grasp this fundamental biological root, As long as we erroneously treat anxiety as a personal weakness or a simple lack of discipline, we will continue to punish ourselves for something that is, in fact, a natural, adaptive mechanism profoundly distorted by an artificial, relentless context. But now, an inevitable, pressing question arises. If this pervasive anxiety we feel is a profound product of our evolutionary history, and also a consequence of our mind's stubborn refusal to accept the raw reality of the present moment, how can we possibly escape this seemingly inescapable labyrinth? If it serves both a biological and a philosophical function, how do we stop perceiving it as a formidable enemy and begin to understand it as a crucial, perhaps even sacred signal? In this next decisive step, we will embark on understanding how this very anxiety can be seen not as an affliction, but as a potent invitation to awareness. We are truly faced with a cruel paradox. The more extensive our knowledge about the world becomes, the more insecure we often feel. The more access we have to boundless information, the greater our anxiety seems to grow. The more choices we are presented with, the more frequently we experience profound paralysis. We live, as Alan Watts so aptly described, in an era of insecurity cleverly disguised as progress, a civilization that idolizes control, yet has meticulously built its very foundation on fear, the pervasive fear of failure, the agonizing fear of loss, the terrifying fear of losing control over what, by its very nature, has never truly been in our hands. Watts powerfully asserts that this modern psychological collapse begins in the mind and spreads like an invisible epidemic, permeating through the body, shaping our culture, and fundamentally altering the way we relate to one another. We are meticulously taught from an early age that we must possess a meticulous plan, a clearly defined purpose, an unswerving direction. We are told we must be endlessly productive, immutably stable, and perfectly emotionally regulated. And yet, simultaneously, we are relentlessly bombarded by profound uncertainties that none of these promises can possibly sustain. Life shifts irrevocably. The world plunges into unforeseen crises. Cherished people inevitably leave. The body falls ill. Chaos invades, and suddenly, everything that once seemed so utterly secure dissolves before our very eyes. And what is our instinctive, panicked response? We rush to try to control even more. We set impossible goals, seek out countless self-help techniques, follow charismatic gurus, create obsessive routines, embrace rigid self-help philosophies, and endlessly repeat motivational speeches that, deep down, are nothing more than desperate attempts to silence the persistent internal roar of fear. But, as Watts would presciently say, the more fervently you try to grasp water with your hands, the more inevitably it slips through your fingers. Anxiety then arises as an inevitable, poignant reflection of this desperate struggle. A mind that stubbornly refuses to accept impermanence and a body that collapses under the strain of trying to obey impossible orders. Dr. Robert Sapolsky reinforces this modern tragedy from a profound biological perspective. He unequivocally shows that our intricate stress systems were designed through millennia of evolution to handle short-term acute events, and that the human body was simply not built to maintain a constant, unceasing state of hyper-alertness. So, what inevitably happens when this finely tuned system is relentlessly activated day after day, for months or even years? What happens when the perceived threat never truly disappears, because, in truth, it exists only in the abstract realm of your own mind? The answer, devastatingly simple, is collapse. Not a metaphorical collapse, but a literal physiological breakdown. Our cells age prematurely, cognitive functions deteriorate. Our immune response becomes dangerously compromised, and various chronic illnesses manifest. An anxious mind doesn't just suffer. It actively makes the entire body profoundly sick. And the cruelest part is that even in the face of these undeniable biological signs, we stubbornly insist on blaming ourselves. We believe that anxiety is a sign of weakness, that stress indicates a personal lack of balance, that we simply need more willpower to overcome it. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be more destructive to our well-being. Both Watts and Sapolsky, despite their differing fields, converge on a central, undeniable resisting the inherent nature of life, whether that resistance is psychological, as Watts describes, or biological, as Sapolsky demonstrates, inevitably creates profound suffering. And this suffering manifests as chronic anxiety, as existential exhaustion, as that pervasive emptiness you feel but cannot quite name. But what if we stopped resisting? What if, instead of continuing to fight so vehemently against anxiety, we began instead to genuinely listen to it? What if this constant state of internal tension were not a disease to be eradicated, but a profound language and urgent, heartfelt attempt by your body and mind to communicate that something fundamental needs to change, to be addressed? This is what we will explore next, and it holds the potential to forever alter how you perceive your inner world. What if, instead of tirelessly trying to eliminate anxiety, as if it were an unwanted intruder, what you truly need is to understand it as a powerful language that your psyche, your body, and even your personal history are using to try to wake you up? Anxiety, when observed deeply and without judgment, reveals itself less as an isolated problem and more as a powerful symptom. Profound reflection of something internal that has been neglected, suppressed, or ignored for far too long. It is the piercing alarm bell that sounds when there's a profound incoherence between what you outwardly live and what you inwardly feel. It rings loudly when your external life meticulously follows a predetermined script of obligations, social masks, and external expectations. But your internal truth screams for authenticity, for profound pause, for genuine meaning. In this profound sense, anxiety is not your enemy. It is, paradoxically, the fierce guardian of the boundary between the false and the true. Alan Watts observed this with disconcerting clarity. For him, psychological suffering primarily arises when we desperately try to sustain an identity that simply does not correspond to the raw, fluid reality of our being. We yearn to appear secure, perpetually controlled, invincibly strong, even when deep inside we are silently crumbling. And as he so incisively writes, to be insecure is to be alive. Pretending otherwise is the perfect recipe for collapse. Watts proposes that anxiety is the painful friction generated between who we genuinely are and who we endlessly pretend to be, a brutal, undeniable reminder that we cannot continue living unconsciously, disconnected from our true selves, without eventually paying a very steep price. On the other side of this spectrum, Sapolsky provides us with the undeniable physiological basis of this collapse. He demonstrates with scientific precision that there is an inherent intelligence within stress, a crucial evolutionary function. It exists to protect you, to alert you to danger, to prepare you for crucial action. But when this vital system is consistently ignored, systematically repressed, or profoundly distorted by abstract fears, this same life-preserving mechanism begins to relentlessly act against you. Anxiety ceases to be adaptive and becomes tragically self-destructive. But notice this crucial point. This doesn't happen because it is inherently wrong or flawed, but because you've inadvertently stopped listening to its message, because you've begun fighting against it instead of understanding it as a potential ally. And it is precisely at this critical juncture that a transformative new possibility arises. What if, instead of continuing to deny or suppress what you feel, you learned instead to simply observe, not to judge, not to react, not to flee, but simply to be genuinely present with the sensation, no matter how uncomfortable or overwhelming it may feel? Because it is in this state of radical, non-judgmental attention that true transformation begins, when you stop seeing anxiety as an enemy, as something to be vanquished, it mysteriously loses the power to utterly dominate you. This does not mean romanticizing suffering. It means recognizing that it has a profound purpose. That pain can be an incredibly potent messenger of growth. That anxiety, despite its frightening appearance, can be a direct invitation to presence, to lucidity, and to meaningful change. Anxiety in this transformative context is the very opposite of alienation. It is the courageous beginning of awareness. And awareness is always unequivocally the first most vital step toward genuine freedom. But to truly follow this path, you need more than just abstract ideas. You need tangible tools. You need practices that ground you, that return you to your body, that cultivate presence. In the next part, we will move from the philosophical to the practical, how to begin reconnecting with the present moment and reclaim, within your own body, the sense of safety that the mind is so desperately trying to manufacture through control. Anxiety does not magically disappear overnight, but it can be profoundly dissolved when you learn to return to where life truly happens, here and now. If what you're hearing resonates deeply within you, then the time has come to make the hardest, and at the same time most transformative move to leave the incessant chatter of the head and return to the body. Because as long as you live trapped in the endless cycle of thought trying to predict, analyze, understand, and control, anxiety continues to feed on your very absence, on your disconnection from the present. The mind, acting alone, cannot heal what it has created. It is necessary to descend, to return, to profoundly reconnect. Alan Watts famously said that the secret of life is to be completely engaged with what you are doing here and now. And he did not utter this as just another self-help cliche, but as a profound, urgent call to practice. Watts understood that the human mind exhausts itself trying to control the uncontrollable precisely because it has tragically lost the fundamental ability to be present in the real. And being present is not a beautiful, abstract idea. It is rigorous training, a profound discipline, a painstaking relearning of the utterly obvious. And that is where biology enters as an essential ally, not as an insurmountable obstacle, Dr. Robert Sapolsky shows us. Through rigorous scientific evidence, that physiological stress can be profoundly alleviated with simple, yet not superficial, actions. Acts like consciously breathing, intentionally slowing down, mindfully moving the body, prioritizing restful sleep, allowing for crucial pauses throughout the day, authentically expressing emotions, and diligently cultivating secure, genuine bonds. All of this is part of the antidote. Not to erase anxiety entirely, but to meticulously restore the lost sense of balance to the body's intricate systems. Breathing deeply, for instance, is not just a simplistic relaxation technique. It is a powerful way to directly reprogram the autonomic nervous system. By consciously prolonging the exhalation, you send an unmistakable signal to your ancient brain that the immediate danger has passed, and it in turn begins the crucial process of deactivating its survival mode. Sapolsky explains that practices like this have a direct, measurable effect on cortisol and adrenaline levels, the primary hormones of chronic stress. But there is something even deeper, radical observation. Learning to notice anxiety arising, feeling it like a wave and courageously resisting the desperate temptation to control or avoid it. Just feeling, just being there, present with the raw sensation, no matter how uncomfortable it is. This is the true beginning of the end of the reactive cycle. It is when you begin to painstakingly train what modern psychology calls emotional regulation, but what Watts would prefer to call surrender to reality. It is the pivotal moment when you become larger than the emotion itself, not because you have miraculously mastered it, but because you have bravely embraced it. Being truly present is resisting the constant compulsion of the future. It is breaking the insidious addiction to trying to solve your entire life's problems before the very next step has even unfolded. It is returning to the body, to the raw immediacy of the now, to the simple sound of your breath, to the tangible, texture of the chair beneath you to the solid touch of the ground on your feet. And gradually, patiently, this profound practice begins to reverse the deep imbalance, not as a magical, instantaneous solution, but as a meticulous daily reconstruction of your own fundamental relationship with the world, with yourself. Anxiety begins to profoundly decrease when the body is genuinely included in the equation. When you stop living solely in the confines of your mind and begin to exist as a whole, integrated being. It lessens when you stop trying to understand everything purely logically and begin instead to trust the wisdom of direct felt experience. Because the body instinctively knows what the analytical mind has so tragically forgotten, that life happens. Truly, one precious moment at a time, but this leads us to an even deeper, more profound revelation. If anxiety is not a mistake, if it has deep roots in both the body and the mind, and if it carries legitimate, vital messages about our fundamental way of living, then perhaps it is not an obstacle to be relentlessly overcome, but an essential, transformative part of our human journey. In this final part, we will integrate all of these powerful insights. We will look at anxiety with new eyes, not as something to be eliminated at all costs, but as a powerful sign that something profound within you is trying to awaken. What you are about to hear may forever change the way you see yourself, your struggles, and your potential for profound liberation. We have reached the conceptual end of this deep dive, but perhaps this is precisely where everything truly begins. Throughout this exploration, you have been confronted with a profoundly new way of looking at something that has likely haunted you for a very long time. Anxiety, that uncomfortable, often pervasive presence that appears in the disconcerting silence of the early morning. In the midst of a seemingly mundane conversation, at the exact moment when, by all outward appearances, everything should be perfectly fine. But now, perhaps you can begin to see what it has always been, a vibrant sign of life, a raw cry from your body, a vital warning from your mind, an echoing call from your consciousness. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not a walking defect. What you feel is profoundly consistent with the complex world you inhabit, with the unique history you carry, and with how tirelessly you have been trying to seem functional in a society that itself suffers from a collective denial of reality. The anxiety you feel is, in fact, a piercing reflection of your inherent clarity, of your profound sensitivity, of your remarkable ability to perceive what is not quite right, even when everyone else expertly pretends that it is. Alan Watts, famously, urged that we try to fix the outside world without fixing what is inside. And perhaps that is the great, profound invitation of anxiety, to turn inward, not as an escape from the world, but as a radical reconnection, as a courageous reclaiming of your inner space. Because when you finally stop fleeing from yourself and begin to truly listen to what you feel without haste, without judgment, without the protective masks you've worn for so long, something shifts irrevocably. Anxiety loses terrifying role as the villain and begins to transform into a profound teacher. Sapolsky, with all his scientific precision, has shown that understanding and tending to the body is an essential, non-negotiable part of the process of healing. Watts, with his philosophical clarity, revealed that accepting the now is the profound key to genuine freedom. And now, the task falls to you to unite these two powerful truths, not to cure anxiety as if it were a virus to be exterminated, but to mature through it, to evolve into someone more whole, more aware, more profoundly present. And this transformation is not achieved in a single video, nor in a single day. This is a journey, a continuous work of unraveling deep-seated lies, of unconditioning yourself from societal pressures, of observing yourself with unflinching honesty. It is the work of a lifetime of allowing anxiety to ultimately teach you how to truly live your life instead of merely surviving it. Finally understanding that true security, paradoxically, lies in stopping the relentless, futile search for it. If this video has touched you in some deeper, unspoken place, if it has illuminated a corner of your own experience you hadn't fully understood, then you are precisely where you need to be. Tell me, what resonated with you the most? What specific part kept echoing in your mind long after you heard it? What excerpt do you wish someone had told you years ago, perhaps when you first began to feel this invisible tension? Your words, shared in the comments below, can be a beacon for another person who is experiencing exactly what you are feeling. Right now, your vulnerability is powerful, Dot, and of course, if this content has helped you see anxiety in a profoundly different light, if it has offered you a new path towards self-understanding and peace, then we wholeheartedly invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here, psychology is offered unfiltered, raw, and deeply human. Here, profound philosophy courageously meets the wisdom of the body. But our journey of awakening doesn't end here. The next video in this series is designed to be a crucial continuation, a vital step in deepening this process of self-reconnection. It could be the very key to unlocking the next phase of your transformation. It's important. I'll see you there. You feel it, don't you? Even when everything on the surface seems perfectly fine, even when no one around you appears to notice, there's an invisible tension. It's a subtle knot that tightens across your chest, a rapid-fire cascade that speeds up your thoughts, a phantom constriction that seems to steal your very breath. Sometimes it materializes out of nowhere, an unbidden guest. Other times it arises simply from the mere act of imagining tomorrow, a spectral projection of future uncertainties. You try desperately to control it, to wrestle it into submission. You might consciously breathe deeply, attempting to calm your racing heart. You might distract your mind with endless tasks, convincing yourself that everything is, in fact, perfectly okay. But deep down, in the quiet recesses of your being, you know it's not. And then the insidious cycle begins, the palpable fear of feeling fear, the gnawing anguish for simply being anxious, and the crushing guilt for not being able to simply be okay, to navigate life with effortless composure. They've told you, haven't they, that this is a problem, a defect within you that demands to be fixed, that there's something fundamentally wrong with your makeup? But what if this entire premise is flawed? What if anxiety isn't a fundamental flaw, but rather a profound symptom of something far greater, far deeper, and far more complex? In this exploration, we won't offer you simplistic breathing exercises or prescriptive productivity lists designed to tame your mind. What you are about to hear may indeed feel profoundly uncomfortable. It may challenge deeply ingrained beliefs about yourself and your experiences, but it can also be profoundly liberating. Because, perhaps, just perhaps, no one has ever truly articulated this to you, that this relentless restlessness, this pervasive unease that so persistently haunts you, can actually be a legitimate, urgent cry from your very consciousness, not a mistake to be corrected, but a vital message to be heard. The enigmatic philosopher Alan Watts, with his characteristic paradox, once asserted that the desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing. And this statement, as counterintuitive as it initially appears, contains a brutal, undeniable truth. The more fiercely you strive to engineer perfect emotional stability, to insulate yourself from all potential discomfort, the more deeply you invariably plunge into the very anxiety you seek to escape. Because anxiety arises precisely from a fundamental refusal to accept the inherent, inescapable nature of life, that is impermanent, ceaselessly unpredictable, and, ultimately, profoundly uncontrollable. You suffer not because of the external chaos, but because you are attempting to control what, by its very nature, cannot be controlled, the ever-shifting tapestry of the future. Now, pause for a moment and allow that truth to settle. What specifically are you desperately trying to avoid? Is it the specter of failure, the piercing sting of pain, the profound ache of abandonment, the terrifying inevitability of death? Whatever the elusive object of your avoidance, anxiety consistently emerges as a natural, albeit often overwhelming, biological mechanism in the face of profound uncertainty. And this is precisely where the stark wisdom of biology enters the conversation. Dr. Robert Sapolsky, one of the most brilliant and articulate neuroscientists alive today, meticulously illustrates in his groundbreaking book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, that the very stress system that so relentlessly consumes us in modern life was originally, evolutionarily, a finely tuned survival tool. Our intricate brains were sculpted over millennia to react with immediate, powerful, force-to-real physical dangers, like the sudden appearance of a predator on the vast, unforgiving savanna. But today, the predator is no longer a charging lion. It's a glowing notification on your phone, an unread email in your inbox, a critical thought swirling in your own mind. And yet, the ancient alarm system, trapped in a modern context, keeps ringing, persistently, relentlessly. You are not going crazy. You are simply living in an ancestral body equipped with primordial instincts, frantically trying to survive in a thoroughly modern world. Your brain, in its ancient wisdom, doesn't discern that there's no actual lion actively hunting you. It reacts in the precise same way, with muscle tension, a pounding heart, a breathless constriction, and a surge of fight or flight hormones. And when this powerful primal response repeats itself day after day for weeks, months, or even years, what was originally designed as a crucial defense mechanism tragically becomes an insidious internal prison, a self-imposed cage of chronic vigilance. But here's the central, transformative point. What if you stop fighting so vehemently against it? What if, instead of tirelessly attempting to control anxiety, you learned instead to understand it, to see it not as a personal flaw or a monumental mistake, but as a legitimate, often agonizing reflection of your profound humanity, a testament to your capacity to perceive and respond to the complexities of existence? This deep exploration is for you, the one who is utterly tired of fighting against yourself, the one who has diligently tried everything from various therapies and disciplined meditation practices to different medications and desperate escapes, and yet still feels the internal emptiness growing, expanding, demanding attention. Here, we will dive deep, venturing into territory rarely explored. We will look at anxiety as you've perhaps never been shown it before, as a mirror reflecting your inner world, as a powerful symptom of deeper truths, and perhaps most surprisingly, as a profound teacher. And from this entirely new perspective, something within you may irrevocably change. Do not expect easy answers or quick fixes here, but if you're genuinely willing to face the raw truth, to bravely confront yourself in this uncomfortable reality, you may discover something far more valuable than temporary relief. You may find profound clarity. Now, tell me, are you truly ready? Because after this, you will never perceive your anxiety in the same way again, in the profound tapestry of the wisdom of insecurity. Alan Watts presents us with one of the most uncomfortable, yet undeniably true, insights into modern existence. We live in a perpetual state of heightened anxiety precisely because we are so utterly obsessed with security. But what we consistently fail to realize, what so often eludes our understanding, is that this very obsession with control and certainty is, in itself, the fundamental root of our insecurity. The relentless, insatiable desire to precisely control the future, to meticulously ensure that every outcome will align with our desires, is precisely what casts us headlong into a spiraling vortex of debilitating fear and paralyzing indecision. Watts keenly points out that modern humans often exist like spectral ghosts, perpetually caught between a past that has definitively ceased to exist and a future that has not yet, and may never truly arrive. We are ceaselessly projecting ourselves forward, meticulously trying to anticipate every conceivable risk, desperately attempting to ensure an elusive stability, and frantically striving to avoid any semblance of chaos. But in this tireless process of future-proofing, we tragically neglect the only place where life in its raw, vibrant essence genuinely happens, the now. Sure, I will provide the second block of the script. Maintaining the established tone, length, and content requirements.